What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Saturdays in the SEC, episode 157. Back to recap Week 6 in college football. Going to look ahead to Week 7 here later on in the episode, but had a really interesting week of games last week. A lot of SEC teams on byes last week, so didn't have quite the full slate of games that we typically have on a weekend, but had some really good ones in Week 6, and we're going to kick it off. I don't want to say the surprise of the weekend, but I guess it's fair to say that a Florida team that was desperate coming into this game, Billy Napier fighting for his job. They just did a special on Lane Kiffin, the many lives of Lane Kiffin. We need one on Billy Napier because this man has proven he's got 9 lives. Because anytime that seat gets really warm, he's able to rally the troops, get a big win. And that's certainly what happened on Saturday in Gainesville. And I just wanted to get your thoughts to start off on this Florida-Texas game and a big win for the Gators.
Yeah, 100%. Being at home was huge for this team, I felt like. DJ Lagway looked extremely comfortable. He commanded this offense extremely well. I mean, drove it down the field multiple times. They controlled time of possession in this game, especially in the first half. They had a lot of long drives, a lot of consistent drives. They had several 10-plus play drives, especially early on. So he was able to control this offense, had complete command. They ran the ball extremely well. We were talking about before we started recording. They ran the ball. They committed to the run game more in this game than they have any other game this season. Jaden Ball, we talked about him in the preseason, an absolute dog. Dallas Wilson is also an absolute dog in his first ever game. He has 6 receptions for 111 yards and a touchdown. True freshman there. Jaden Ball ran for 107 yards on 27 carries. It was never just long breakaway runs, but it was just consistent over and over and over again. And he hit you in the mouth over and over and over again. And they stayed with it. The defense played out of their minds, had 6 total sacks, but if you watch the game, it felt like they had 12 sacks. I mean, they were on Arch all day. There was a couple times where Arch made a couple of good plays, but for the most part, the defensive front for Florida played out of their minds. They only allowed 57 total rushing yards. Their leading rusher was the quarterback from scrambles and stuff, so the defense for Florida, we've been praising them all season. And the offense finally came along and complimented them this game. I thought the defense, the front especially, played out of their minds. They were a reason that they forced some of those interceptions. They were just on him, forcing him to make bad decisions and roll out of the pocket. Kept him uncomfortable all game. Texas did have some drop passes at times, but for the most part, Florida dominated this game on both sides of the ball. The line of scrimmage, we talk about that all the time, and the line of scrimmage was won by Florida here. With how they were consistently just staying with the run game. They protected DJ Lagway. He made a couple of big throws, but for the most part, they were just trusting him to run the offense with what the defense was giving him. That's exactly what they did. And like you said, when Billy Napier's seat is hot, he coaches the best. We saw him last year, won 5 or 6 in a row to end the year when talks were swirling. Started the season 1-3, losing to a non-Power 4 opponent. And then he turns around and beats Texas, who was a preseason number 1 team or number 2 team, whatever it was. So, yeah, Billy Napier, he likes it down there in Gainesville. He's proven that he likes it down there in Gainesville because he's doing everything he can to keep his job. And if they can build off of this and continue from this and get this be their minimum, their base, their worst, then I think that the season's ahead of them and they can potentially still get to 8 or 9 wins. It's a long shot for sure, but if they can play like they did Saturday, I don't see why they couldn't.
Yeah, I mean, it was a huge win, a much-needed win for a desperate team, and you got to give him a ton of credit. I mean, the way he keeps this team fighting, like you said, it's when people start counting him out, people start, saying he's going to lose his job, and that's when they really seem to step up, get a big win. It's just, like you said, can they get that consistency going, and can we get this kind of Florida team week in and week out and not wait till week 6 or 7 to get it, because that's kind of been the case the last couple of years. We've had to wait, 5 or 6 weeks for this team to really click, and it's going to be interesting to see if they can have a similar run to like they did a year ago, to kind of propel them to, a season that, it looked like it was going off the rails. They rallied the troops, got everyone together, and ended the season really strong, so we'll see if they can do that again. And if we can get this kind of Florida team, that team can beat anybody in the country on any given Saturday. Because, I mean, when they're playing, it's a very talented roster. I love the way they ran the football, had control of the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. I mean, Jaden Baugh got more carries in this game than the last two games combined. Really early in the season, just felt like they weren't trying to run the ball enough. This is a team that should be able to, and they just really weren't committing to it enough. I mean, you go on the road in LSU, that was a game for all four quarters, and it was like you were trying to force to throw the ball. You end up throwing 5 picks and losing that game when it's like, man, you felt like you could have stayed with the run more and tried to get that going, and that's kind of what we saw in this game. And like I said, Jaden Ball's a dog. Dallas Wilson. I mean, it's a really dynamic roster. I mean, the defense has played great all year. Like you said, DJ Lagway hitting some big throws down the field, which they desperately needed, and kind of get some of his confidence back. So, big win for Florida. I'm really curious to see if they can keep this going. It's something that they can make consistently the rest of the way. Because, like I said, if you get this version of a Florida team, like that's the top 15 team we expected in the preseason. That can, and I know Texas hasn't played great this year and struggling offensively, but I mean that's a really good talent roster they beat on that side too. So if we get this version of Florida team, they can beat anybody in the league on any given Saturday, and we'll see. Like I said, he's not out of the woods yet. I mean he's going to have to rack up some more wins to potentially save his job. So he's going to need another run like we saw a year ago. And I'm curious to see, what they can do the rest of the way.
And then, transitioning to the other side of the ball, Texas, man, just like you just mentioned, just still struggling offensively, can't really find a true identity. Really, the big plays that they had, they were kind of created by Arch extending the play at times. They had a couple of decent runs, but nothing outside of one or two. They missed some big plays, man. Arch missed a touchdown pass early. They had a trick play for a touchdown pass that they missed. They had some drop passes. There was just no execution on the offensive side of the ball for the most part. I mean, their last touchdown was the final drive with under 3 minutes or something like that to go in the game after they had thrown 2 interceptions. I didn't think Arch was as bad as the media is portraying him to be. I really didn't think he was that bad. But again, there are some things there's some plays that he's got to be making that he's just not, that when they're wide open consistently there and you're missing them, that's a problem. Throwing it into trouble, they do it into traffic a couple of times. So there's definitely things to work on there for Arch, but I don't think he's as bad as the media is painting him to be right now.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like I said, some of it's him, maybe making the right reads. A lot of it's, too, the offensive line just has not been as, they didn't really go heavy in the portal. They trusted what they had internally, and it just hasn't worked out for whatever reason. Parts of the offensive line have been really, really leaky so far. The wide receivers aren't really getting the separation that you would expect. I mean, the athletes that Texas has just felt like they haven't been able to get guys open at the rate that a Steve Sarkisian offense normally does. And so I agree with you. It's a lot more than just Arch. I think it's really the whole operation right now. You can look at multiple different areas and find some flaws and find weaknesses. So it's something that they've got to kind of go back to the drawing board on and figure out, because, I mean, there's no reason that Texas should be struggling as much offensively. Like, you've got the personnel there. You've got, a really talented quarterback. You've got receivers that are talented. Same thing, the offensive line. And big thing for me is you highlight they had a couple decent runs, but, like, Texas just not running the football very well at all this year. And that to me is one of the biggest issues of the entire offense, because I think their running backs have very little yards in this game. Like I said, Arch made a few scrambles, but
he was the longest runs. He broke a couple for 12 to 15 yards. Without Arch, a lot of those drives are stalled out even earlier than they were, because he extended a couple of drives with his legs. He looked really good. His legs are legit straight up. He's a really true dual threat quarterback. He ran them really well. But outside of like 2 or 3 of his runs, like you said, Texas couldn't run the ball. I mean, their second leading rusher was Contravian Wisner. He had 8 carries for 11 yards. Now, Arch Manning's average is 2.5 yards. Some of that's factored in by the sacks and stuff. He probably truly had, I don't know, 4.5 to 6 yards a carry based on his true rushes. But I mean, they sacked him 6 times. But like I said, if you watch the game, it felt like they were on him way more than 6 times. They were consistently pressuring him, knocking him off balance, affecting the throw, or getting to him officially. So I mean, it was. Florida played a great ball game, but on the other side, on Texas' side, you got to be frustrated because you're known to be an offensive type team. You have a really good defense, and your offense really can't get anything going.
Yeah, I mean, they're outside the top 50 in rushing now. So just the University of Texas, they got to be able to run the football. I mean, when you got and they've got a stable running backs too. Like it's not really a talent thing. They've got to get things fixed on the offensive line. It's just a whole operation's a little off right now, but yeah, I mean, obviously it's a really tough loss for them, and yeah, I mean, you're in season on the line mode here the rest of the way, so curious to see how they respond but they definitely got some things to go back to the drawing board on offensively.
100%. All right, moving on to another game that was. I mean, it's where game day was. I guess you can say it was one of the biggest games of the weekend, if not the biggest game of the weekend. Vanderbilt comes to Alabama after stunning them last year, beating them for the first time in 40 years or whatever it was. Vandy's quarterback, Diego Pavia's talking a little bit of noise coming into the game, saying if we execute our game plan, it should be an easy victory. And honestly, early on, his words were proven to be true. They take an early lead. They get a stop. Bama goes for it on 4th down. They get an interception, and they're marching right down the field. I mean, play after play, just chunk play after chunk play. Get into the red zone and fumble the ball. Justin Jefferson from Alabama forces a fumble, and that right there completely shifted the game. I mean, you're talking about a potential at best for Vanderbilt, at worst for Alabama, a 14-0 lead. At worst for Vanderbilt, at best for Bama, a 10-0 lead. You're talking about that. If Vandy doesn't lose the football right there, there's probably a 14-0 victory, or they're up on Bama 14-0, kind of a lot like last year. They got that touchdown in the pick six or whatever it was, jumped up on Bama last year and just got in there early. It kind of felt like the same thing, and Bama forced a turnover, and that switched the game completely. And then offensively, Bama was the offense that we've seen the last 4 weeks of Bama playing. They looked really good, really crisp on offense. I thought that we've been saying that Alabama can't run the football recently, and so far this year they really haven't been able to. But Saturday, they stuck with the run. They went with the run early, stuck with the run, and, I mean, they wrote it out. I mean, Jam Miller had 100-and-something yards rushing. He went for 136. I mean, he was – everybody talking about when Jam Miller gets back, the running game's going to be better. And some people are like, well, pump the brakes on that a little bit. One running back doesn't make the running game jump up that much better. Clearly it does, because when Jam Miller's there, the offense moves a little bit differently. We've seen that since he's been back. He had a fantastic game. Ty Simpson had a really good game, threw for 340 yards. Outside of that one interception on the very first drive of the game, he pretty much played flawless. But they were a truly balanced offense, had over damn near 500 yards of offense in this game, 480-something yards in this game. So I thought Bama dominated. And then, defensively, Bama held them. They ran the ball for 136 yards, which when you watch the game, doesn't feel like they ran it for 136 yards. It's not like they were just gashing them consistently from start to finish. I thought Bama's defense answered. I thought they made the correct adjustments after about the second or third drive, and then from then on, Bama dominated, and it was all Bama.
Yeah, kind of looking at this game, like you said early on, it felt like a continuation of last year's game. That first drive or two for Vandy. They broke off broke off the long touchdown run to open the game after the interception. And like I said, they had a couple big runs early. Alabama made some great adjustments defensively and was able to control it the rest of the way. Really, four key areas that Alabama completely flipped this game from a year ago. Because last year, Alabama lost time of possession. They lost the turnover battle. They lost penalties, and they lost third downs. Well, they won all of those areas this year, and that's the reason we got the result we did. Vandy absolutely dominated time of possession a year ago. Bama didn't quite flip it, but almost did. They had 36 minutes to 24 minutes and change, so Vandy had over 40 minutes a year ago. Third downs, Alabama was pretty good, 7 of 15. And then for second week in a row, you had less penalties than your opponent. I mean, that's a couple things that are good. Two big signs for me for Alabama that makes me feel confident going forward are your penalties are way down. And, you see the way they're executing offensively. The offensive line's starting to gel. Even though they're rotating guys in, they're starting to gel a little bit. Getting a running game going's big. So, and then the turnover battle. Alabama's only had one turnover in the entire season. So things like that, they're playing clean football. They're playing complementary football, and that's something that if they can carry that forward, it's going to bode really well for them. You highlighted it well with Jam Miller coming back. The run game's really ticked up. Thought the offensive line, the last two games in particular, has played very, very well in a run game. Like I said, they're still rotating guys in, but guys are getting a little bit more experience, getting more used to playing with each other. So I think it's a combination of Jam being back, the offensive line's gelling, and they've kind of shortened the running back rotation. You've had Jam and Kevin Riley, and that's pretty much it. Early in the season, they were rotating 3 or 4 guys in there with Jam being out. So I think shortening things, too, has probably helped a little bit as well. So, yeah, really like what I've seen the last 2 weeks in particular. And, yeah, like you highlighted it perfectly. After that first drive, Alabama made some great in-game adjustments and was able to keep Pavia in the pocket, forced a couple turnovers, just kind of made him feel a little bit more uncomfortable than he has been. And then you saw a balanced attack from Alabama with Ty Simpson, again, playing as well, as good as anybody in the country at the quarterback position.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the game was a little closer, than what the box scores show. Bama had a late touchdown to really seal the deal. So scoreboard-wise, it was a little closer than most of the game, but it felt like Bama had complete control of the game. Really, from the moment they forced that fumble on, it felt like Bama had complete control. And then it was ball game. I mean, everybody knew it. Everybody in the stadium knew it. It was ball game when Diego Pavia threw the interception, because they were kind of driving there as well. When they threw the interception, I mean, everybody in the stadium knew it. It was ball game. So Bama came to play, and Bama did exactly that. That was championship football. What Bama did Saturday. All the noise coming in. Everybody's talking about last year. You got the other team running their mouth. They just came in. They punched them in the face, and they pretty much dominated the whole game. Outside of the first 10 minutes of play, they dominated the whole game. They performed like a championship team performs. That's what you expect to see when you watch Alabama play. So I wasn't shocked that was the outcome, but the way that it unfolded was pretty cool to see, because it felt like it was, like you said, a continuation of last year, and then Bama was like, nope, we're still Alabama, they're still Vanderbilt. We're the championship standard here, so let's go play like it. And then from like I said, the moment that he fumbled on, it was Bama performed the way you expect Bama to perform every Saturday.
Yeah, I think too Alabama did good in the red. They went 5 of 5 in the red zone. I thought the biggest thing that kept it probably a little bit closer than it was scoreboard wise for most of the game. Alabama had quite a few drives stall out about the 30. They missed a field goal. Obviously, they threw the interception on the first drive, which, like I said, give Vandy credit for bowing up close to the red zone. And you can say the same thing for Vandy's had a couple stall where they turned the ball over too. So it goes both ways here. But I thought Alabama had quite a few drives that got to about the 25 or 30, the edge of the red zone, and then they just kind of stalled out. They had a pressure one time on third down where Lotsier Brooks was open down the left sideline, and it was incomplete. Just didn't have time to really complete that ball. Just a few things here or there that kind of stalled some things, but but give Vandy a lot of credit for hanging in as well and bowing up when they needed to at times. But yeah, all in all, pretty complete game from Alabama for the most part. And what you wanted to see after last year's game, and I think with Vandy being next on the schedule after the Georgia win, I think it allowed them to refocus pretty quickly.
100%. Want to move into the game that I was really high on this past weekend, a line I was really high on. Mississippi State plus 15 or 16 whenever or wherever you got it. And it looked good a lot of the game until the very end. Mississippi State, they kind of got in their own way at times. Now, I will say, Texas A&M, to go out there and have penalty after penalty after penalty. I mean, they've continuously done this. So we've heard the broadcasters talk about that. Mike Elko said he's creating a Cabo fund for the players that get penalties. They're going to have to donate to the Cabo fund for the coaches to go on a trip at the end of the year. I think that's hilarious. So you look at that, and early on they start out one of their drives with some penalties. I think it was their first, maybe second drive. They were driving down, had some penalties that killed their drive, and they were getting in their way, and they were extending some of Mississippi State's drives with penalties. So I thought that to be able to overcome all of that was a big deal. Obviously, they were at home, so it's a little easier to do that. But not playing your best and still playing sloppy and finding a way to win, that's not easy to do in the SEC. However, their defense came out hot. I mean, they got to Blake Shapen early and often, but they sacked him twice on the first drive. Now, offensively, they had to rely on Marcel Reed's legs. I mean, he had a rushing touchdown. He extended some plays early, especially in the first half with his legs, got some first downs. They ran the ball really well with Reuben Owens and Le'Veon Moss. Reuben Owens had a fantastic day. The passing game really wasn't there for Marcel Reed, especially in the first half. He was missing guys, overthrowing. You heard Jordan Rogers talking about it in the broadcast, that he was kind of double hitching or holding on to it just a tick too late and was kind of hesitant with his throw. Or there'd be a read that he wasn't sure if it was there or not, and he would still try to fit it in. So there's still some improvement to go for sure, but he's still playing really good football. He didn't let all those bad moments pile into anything. Still was able to hit some big plays later in the game. But they really had to rely on the run game here, which we've seen Texas A&M be able to win several different ways. But they allowed Mississippi State to hang around. Mississippi State just was not able to capitalize. The moment that I knew that it was ball game, Mississippi State got the interception with like 5 minutes to go before half. They have a chance to drive down and take a lead at half to extend their lead, or maybe go at 10-7, whatever it was at the time. Might have been 3-0 at the time. I can't remember the exact score. But Mississippi State gets an interception, and then the very next drive, they're driving down the field, and they gave it right back to them. After that, you were like, yeah, Texas A&M is going to win this ball game, because Texas A&M was able to drive down and ended up scoring after that. There were several opportunities for Mississippi State to take this game. Mississippi State got the interception right before half. I knew that Texas A&M had the game won right then, especially after A&M drove down and scored right after that. So State gets a turnover, gives it right back, and then Texas A&M is the one who answers right before half. That's a big momentum swing. State left multiple opportunities out on the field. They could just never get anything to go their way. They had a fumble early on that killed a drive. It set up 3rd and 16 after a decent drive was built. They threw an interception. They had a fumble on a play where it literally looked like the receiver handed it to the defensive back for Texas A&M. He was trying to tuck the ball, and it kind of just slipped out of his hand, honest mistake. But it literally looked like he just handed it directly to him. So there were several drives that they were not able to capitalize on. Their first drive of the game, they drive all the way down. They got 3rd and goal on the 1 yard line, have a false start, backs them up. They're 3rd and goal from the 6, end up having to settle for a field goal. Their defense played really well. Again, back-to-back weeks they lose a game where their defense really is not giving up that many points. It's coming off short fields from the offense and things along those lines. So I thought that Mississippi State is definitely an improved ball team. And, fans don't want to hear this type of stuff, especially after losses like that. But a 31-9, this game, the scoreboard does not dictate how this game played. Mississippi State played really, really well. They ran the ball well. Box score only shows them having 77 rushing yards, but they sacked Blake Shapen several amounts of times, and they had a couple of tackles for loss. But Fluff Bothwell ran for 70-something yards, and they also had another back go for 50 yards or something along those lines. Losing Fluff Bothwell, though, that really hurts, especially on the play that it was. It was a behind the sticks, late down, just a check down ball, and it looks like it was a knee injury. Hate losing him. He was a big part of their offense. Probably not going to be back the rest of the year from what the injury looked like. But I thought that as a whole, this was a very entertaining ball game, and you just got to be just sick to your stomach as a Mississippi State fan because there were several opportunities that you had, and you couldn't capitalize. You extended a drive for Texas A&M right outside at the start of the second quarter. You had a third down. Marcel Reed runs out of bounds. You hit him late out of bounds. You extend the drive. Now, you do end up getting a goal line stand out of that, but you start in your own end zone, you end up punting out of your own end zone, you can't get anywhere. You stop them there, you have a shorter field or a more manageable field, you never know what happens. So Mississippi State just kind of got in their own way, and so did Texas A&M at times. But then in the second half, Texas A&M turned it on, and they looked like a much better ball team. But they just relied on the run. Sweeps, speed sweeps. They'd motion Craver over or Conception over and hand it off for a little extension of the pass game, extension of the run game, whatever you want to call it. And then they just, like I said, relied on Owens and Moss to take the rest of it. Marcel Reed ran it pretty well too, but they ran the ball at will against Mississippi State. But other than that, I mean, I thought Mississippi State's defense held up really well and gave them a chance to win, but the offense gave them some short fields at times and had the defense back out there pretty quick.
Yeah, I mean, kind of what we talked about too. This A&M team, I like how they can win in a lot of different ways. Like we've seen several examples of that so far early in this year. With Marcel Reed, like you said, he started off a little shaky, but kind of settled in as the game went on, relying on that run game as well and extending plays with his legs and being able to pull away in the second half off of some Mississippi State mistakes and forcing some turnovers with their defense. Yeah, this game is what I expected early on. Like I said, with A&M pulling away in the second half, made it look not as close as it really was for a lot of the game. I really like watching this A&M offense when they kind of get going because when Marcel Reed, when he's delivering the football to the right spots, making the right reads, extending plays with his legs, like this can be a really tough offense to stop because they got a really great running game. They got a couple really explosive wideouts and a dynamic quarterback too. So they're fun to watch when they kind of got rolling there in the second half. And like I said, their A&M's defense did a great job capitalizing off of some state turnovers. Like I said, just giving A&M's offense multiple chances to put the ball in the end zone and kind of put it away as the game went on. But yeah, I thought definitely State competed really hard. Like I said, game was really closer than the score indicated the way they competed. Just made too many mistakes to give themselves a chance in the fourth quarter. But yeah, all in all, good football game. Like I said, Mississippi State's a much improved team, a solid team. They're going to be a tough out anywhere they go because this A&M team is right now one of the best teams in the SEC and in the country the way they're playing. Definitely got to get the penalties cleaned up. It's been a season-long problem, and it's going to end up biting them sooner rather than later if they can't get those numbers down a little bit. But this A&M team, they've got all the pieces to compete and have a chance to win the SEC, make the playoff, and have a chance to go deep because they really don't have a ton of weaknesses other than just cleaning up some penalties. I think the better Marcel Reed plays, this team's just going to elevate from there. They're really good. They're really strong defensively, and like I said, they got a plethora of weapons on the offensive side, both in the running game and the pass game.
Texas A&M had 5 guys with 30-plus rushing yards. One of them had Ruben Owens had 142 rushing yards, but they had 5 different guys go 30-plus. That really tells you all you need to know. You got 5 different guys going for 30-plus. That means you got plenty of backs that can do exactly what they want because your offensive line is dominating. No shocker there. The defense played really well for Texas A&M. They forced some turnovers. But I thought that, as bad as it's been for Mississippi State in the last few years, I think this year is a bright year for them. They're competing in these games. They've already doubled their win total from last year. So the future's bright for Jeff Lebby down there in Starkville. I do want to talk about Kentucky and Georgia. You called it, man. I was a little hesitant on the 20 and a half, and you hit it right on the head, cousin. You said Georgia was going to cover minus 20 and a half, and that's exactly what they did. Kentucky, it was kind of a little bit a little easier win until they're late. I had the under in this game, and it ended up not hitting because of the late touchdown, so that kind of hurt. But as a whole, this game played out exactly how we expected it to play out. Georgia came out, handled business, did what they were expected to do against this team in Kentucky, which is probably going to finish at the bottom of the conference this year. So, no surprises here from me. Gunnar Stockton played pretty well. They didn't ask him to do a whole lot. They ran the ball pretty well. Just a average Georgia game, what you expect, especially at coming off of a loss in Alabama. It was not the Kentucky and Georgia game of last year when it went down to the wire and Georgia almost lost. They came out and did what you expect a team like that to do to a team like Kentucky.
Yeah, it just felt like a tough spot for Kentucky catching Georgia off a loss, in Athens, and thought Kentucky started out pretty decent, had a couple good runs early, a drive or two early, and like I said, through four quarters though, Georgia just pulled away, outrushed them 180-45. Like I said, Kentucky, they'll have a drive or two here or there, but they just really can't sustain things offensively. It's been a problem, all year long so far. So, and then yeah, like I said, Georgia thought Gunnar Stockton played well. Like I said, in the RPO game, like I said, they got the backs going downhill early in the run game. So yeah, kind of felt like a typical type of Georgia game. And I just thought with Kentucky, their offensive limitations just felt like a spot where Georgia could take advantage. Obviously, didn't hit by much. It hit by half a point, but
Yeah.
I was a little surprised it sat at 20 and a half. I thought it might creep up to 21, but luckily it did, and pretty much hit right on the nose. And like I said, ho hum, Georgia took care of business. And like I said, solid game from both sides of the ball. But yeah, after the first quarter, first half, there Kentucky. Like I said, Kentucky had a couple drives, but nothing crazy, and Georgia locked in. And like I said, was just solid on both sides of the football.
All right, moving into week 7, we got a bunch of really good matchups this week, really good conference matchups. We got Alabama, Missouri, Washington State's coming in to play Ole Miss. We got the Red River Shootout, Oklahoma and Texas. Arkansas and Tennessee are playing. Florida's going to Texas A&M. Georgia's going to Auburn. And South Carolina's going to LSU. We'll start out with Alabama, Missouri. Alabama's a 3.5-point favorite. Over-under set at 51.5. Going to Missouri, Alabama being a favorite. I want to get your thoughts on this, Cam.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I hadn't got to talk about it a lot because you've had Georgia and the Vandy games coming up, so, there's no point in talking about the Missouri game yet. But this is definitely a matchup and a game that I've been nervous about for a couple weeks now. Just think, we talked about the spot with Auburn going to Texas A&M a couple weeks ago. I feel like Alabama's facing a similar spot here going to Missouri. You got Missouri coming off a bye. They played UMass the week before that. So let's just call it 1.5 bye weeks, basically. I mean, this is literally as fresh of a football team as you're ever going to face in week 7 of the college football season. They played every game at home, so they have not spent a night that wasn't in Columbia, Missouri since the season kicked off. So this is the last of 6 straight home games to open the year. Like I said, you're coming off the bye. You had a weak opponent before that. So literally, it's Alabama's coming off 2 emotional wins. You went to Georgia, then you come home for a revenge game against Vandy, 2 ranked opponents. So to me, it's just one of those games where it's like, man, you got to get right back up for a 3rd week in a row while Missouri's just been kicking their feet up, preparing, just waiting for this game, this moment. They got beat down in Tuscaloosa last year. They were a banged-up team with a backup quarterback. That wasn't really a true fight, it felt like. So I think this year's going to be totally different. The way Bo Perbula's playing right now, I think he's one of those guys that he's been on the bench at Penn State, transfers to Missouri, ends up winning the job. He's a guy that's not being talked about enough nationally. because they really haven't played a ton of marquee games yet. I just think he's a guy poised, probably just itching to burst onto the national scene. You've got a Heisman Trophy candidate in the backfield and Ahmad Hardy, the leading rusher in the SEC, and I think the country, I think right at 700 yards.
Yep.
So they've got two really good backs back there, a really good run scheme that's going to be tough to defend, and the way Purdue's playing. So all that to say, I think the line's about right, to be honest with you. I really came on, no joke, I came on this podcast intending to pick Missouri to win this game. But I think what I've seen from Alabama the last 2 weeks, really low penalties, lower than their opponents for the last 2 weeks, which is something that had not been the case previously. And I think one of the biggest things, the way they've made in-game adjustments the last 2 weeks, which had been an issue prior to that. They made some great in-game adjustments in the second half against Georgia, particularly on the defensive side. Same thing against Vandy. We're able to make really good in-game adjustments. Those are two areas, along with the way Ty Simpson's playing right now. You've got the run game established a lot more. So with those couple factors, I'm going to lean Alabama. I don't feel confident about this game. I'm not touching the line with a 10-foot pole, to be honest with you, because I just don't have a great feel on it. I'll lean Alabama slightly for those reasons, but this Missouri team, number one, is very much capable, especially with some of the scheduling advantages they have coming in this game. They are more than capable. They're really good up front, rushing the passer, really good pressure rate. Yeah, I'm very, very nervous about this game, and I think it's definitely one of the best games of the weekend. I do want to say I've heard a couple, rumors of a trap game. This is not a trap game. This is a legitimate top 15 team on the road. Like, I get why people are saying that, but I think Alabama's full attention is going to be on this Missouri team, as it should be. And, no, they're going and playing a really good team that's ranked on the road, that's undefeated, 11 o'clock kick. It's going to be a great game, a really entertaining game, I believe. But I'll go Alabama slightly, probably by a field goal, about what the line is.
All right, so I'm gonna ask you some questions here. Do you know who Missouri's played up to this point?
I do, yeah. The two toughest teams they played are Kansas and South Carolina. That's their two toughest opponents.
For our listening audience who doesn't know, Central Arkansas, Kansas, Louisiana, South Carolina, UMass. Okay, they're 5-0. South Carolina's not exactly what we thought they were this year. Do you know what Penn State's schedule looks like up to this point?
Yeah. Well, I know they played Oregon, and I know they played UCLA, and they
okay. So I'm gonna rattle off. So they opened up with Nevada, then they played FIU, then they played Villanova, then they ran into Oregon at home, whiteout, and lost. And then they just lost to UCLA, whatever you say about that. All I'm saying is this Missouri team, while I think they're good, and we guaranteed over 6.5, and then a few days later the line moved up to 7.5 on season total wins, we think that's still going to hit. I think this is an 8-9 win team, no doubt. But this team reminds me a lot of Penn State, man. A lot of hype around them, and then you go and look at their schedule, and who have they played? The teams they're beaten are literally nobodies. They should not even be games with the team that Missouri is, the way everybody talks about Missouri and this potentially being a quote-unquote trap game for Alabama. They're a top 15 team. This is a very good team. They're not battle-tested. They're not battle-tested like Alabama has been up to this point already. Give me Alabama big. I think Alabama wins by 10+. I'm thinking Alabama 34-10, 34-14. I think Alabama runs away with this game. I don't care that they got Ahmad Hardy. Ahmad Hardy's a damn good running back. I think he's going to get his yards. I think he's going to get his. It's going to take more than Ahmad Hardy. I'm a big Bo Purdue's guy. I really like the way he plays. They're not going to be too much for Alabama. Bama's seen better offenses in this team already. Give me Bama big. I like a 34-10 victory. Bama minus 3.5 is my lock of the week, by the way.
Man, you're way more confident than I am. And I mean, hey, I hope you're right, but no, like I said, I think part of my reasoning too, and I think the line, the way it is just a scheduling spot. Like I said, it's a tough It's a tough spot, like I said. But obviously, Missouri's top 10 in both offense and defense so far. Like I said, how much of that is true or not, based on the opponents they played, I absolutely agree with you as far as the strength of schedule and being battle tested. But I think some of their run schemes, I think, the way Alabama has not defended the run great, that's something that scares me a little bit too. But like I said, the way Alabama's made some adjustments, I do think if they can give Ty Simpson some time, I think, kind of like against Georgia, I think there's some plays to be made in that secondary. But, yeah, it should be a really interesting matchup to kick off the day. And I certainly hope your prediction is on the money.
I think that I'm going to be winning some money on that bet. Going to the Red River Shootout. Been a good game the last few years. Dating back, one of my favorite games was when Dylan Gabriel was there at quarterback for Oklahoma. That was a fantastic football game. They were still in the Big 12 that year. I believe that was the final year of the Big 12 Red River Shootout. However, it's going to be a much different game this year. John Mateer's listed as questionable, so I haven't heard for sure if he's playing or not. I expect him to be playing this game. Oklahoma's a 1.5-point favorite. It's a rivalry game, yada, yada, yada. Oklahoma's the best defense I've seen in college football this year. They're top 5 in just about every single category there is to be in stats, on defensive stats. I think that this Oklahoma defense is going to have a field day with Texas. We just talked about them earlier in the podcast. Texas' offensive line is not as good as we expect them to be. We know their quarterbacks had struggles recently. They haven't been able to run the ball extremely well. So I think this Oklahoma defense is going to have a field day regardless of who's at quarterback. I think Oklahoma covers this 1.5-point spread.
I tell you what, we've talked all year about chaos in the SEC. There's going to be some games we don't expect, and I tell you what, I'm going with hook 'em, baby. I'm going with this Texas. I think they're going to figure some things out during this week. Their literal season is on the line here. I've got right now. I think it actually opened. Texas was a couple-point favorite. I've still got it at 1.5 for Texas. It may be a little bit different other places. But I think, and I will say Josh Pate did say on his show that he spoke to the people at FanDuel, and that number was with John Mateer playing. So if John Mateer is ruled out, that line will actually bump up a little bit. He said actually Texas 5.5 if John Mateer's not playing. I think people expect him to. I don't think we're going to get 100% John Mateer. So
you're telling me John Mateer's worth 4 points?
That's what they got at right now. Which it opened at either Texas 2.5 or 3.5, and they said it would be 5.5 with him not playing. So it's down to 1.5 because Oklahoma money's come in. So it may be more like 3 points maybe on that. But I'm gonna pick Texas to win here and cover. I think it's gonna be a very ugly game. It is not gonna be aesthetically pleasing at all. I think even if Mateer plays, I trust this Texas defense to keep them in it. It's going to be tough sledding for Texas. I think they're going to find a way to find just enough. Like I said, season's on the line here. I think they're more battle tested at this point, a little bit more than Oklahoma is. Even though Oklahoma's played some good team, played a good Auburn team that's had a couple close losses, played a Michigan team that's pretty good. But I just think the desperation mode for Texas, I think it's going to be a close game either way, but I'm going to lean Texas just because they got to have it, man. I mean, they with the expectations they came in with this year, they can't have 3 losses by Red River, coming out of Red River. That fan base is going to be super unhappy. I think they find a way by a field goal maybe. I think it's going to be like 17-14. I think it's going to be under. And it's a low under, and I think it's going to be under that. I think it's going to be ugly, unless you just have a couple crazy turnovers or something. I just think there's so many unknowns in this game, with Mateer's status and, what can Texas right the ship here in a week coming off a bad outing against Florida. We'll see what happens. I'm going to lean Texas, not confident in it, but I just think Texas is going to be the more desperate team in this spot.
All right. Arkansas is traveling to Knoxville. It's Arkansas's first game. After Sam Pittman, after the shellacking they took from Notre Dame, I think they're going to have some tricks offensively to show. Tennessee's an 11.5-point favorite. Over under 68.5. I really don't know what to think about this game. I could see Tennessee beating them by a landslide. I could see it being a shootout. I could see Arkansas upsetting them in a shootout. I really don't know what to think about this game. I'm staying away from this game. I think Tennessee finds a way to win it, especially it being at Knoxville. But I honestly don't know how I view this game playing out this weekend.
I don't either. I would say I'm like you. I think Tennessee wins. I don't really have a good feel on the number. Just feels like too many unknowns for me an interim coach, if you can even say that, and Bobby Petrino. He cleaned house with the defensive staff. Not sure whoever they have in this place now, I don't think they're good enough to rectify it over a bye week, to be honest with you. So I will say I'm comfortable in saying points will be scored in Neyland Stadium. There's going to be some fireworks. I feel confident in that. I think Tennessee wins. I think Joey Aguilar is going to have a field day on this Arkansas defense because I don't think they've rectified it in less than 2 weeks. But I think Taylor Green, I think they're going to get theirs too. I think they're going to have a chance to score some points in this game. So I think points will be scored. I don't know if I'm gutsy enough to take the 68.5 over, but it might not be that rich. But I like Tennessee to win at home. Just too many unknowns for Arkansas for me, and a defense that's leaky, to put it nicely.
All right, Florida going to Texas A&M. Texas A&M started out 5-0. They're a really good ball team, but we talked about there's things that's going to get them beat in the coming weeks in the SEC if they continue to do so. Passing game hasn't been great the last few weeks. Penalties are getting in their way. They're stalling out drives, some turnovers, consistency at quarterback at times. They're going to drop a game. Me and Cam were talking before we started recording. Cam may feel like the Gators may have the ability to come in here and shake some things up. Who knows? I think being at Kyle Field with the 12th man is a huge advantage. I think Texas A&M finds a way to win this game. I'm staying away from the line, but I think the over hits. The over's 46.5. I think the over hits in the Texas A&M Florida game.
Yeah, I like that. I'm not going to take the line either. I'd take A&M to win. I think Florida can keep it to a one-score game, though. It really just depends on what Florida team we get. Are we getting the team that we saw the first couple weeks, or are we getting the team that we saw last week that's able to run the football a little bit? And, I mean, not to say they'll just run it great, but I think they can run it better than they did against Miami and LSU. They didn't really try to establish it like they needed to, like we talked about in the recap. I want to see them go back to it again, feed Jaden Baugh, let him get going on the ground. I think that's something that this team should be able to lean on a little bit. It was nice to see DJ Lagway and them hit some explosive pass plays last week, which it was a key in them winning the game against Texas. So I think we're going to see more of the Florida team that we saw last week. I think it's something they can build on. We've seen this with Florida gain some momentum in the middle part of the season. So I'm not going to pick them to win at Kyle Field. Don't think they have quite enough there, but I think they can keep this game close. I think it's going to be a fight, especially if we get the Florida team we had last week. And it should be a really interesting game Saturday night. But I'm going to take A&M to win and get to 6-0.
Quick question before we go to a different game. If Florida loses this game, is Billy Napier done?
Not yet. I think there's still a pretty good chance he loses his job. Honestly, like I don't think last week rectified it or anything. It probably just kept it going a little bit longer. I mean, I think there's higher odds that he loses his job rather than keeping it, but. I don't necessarily think it'll be this week if they lose, especially if they lose a close game at Kyle Field. I think he's going to hang on a little bit longer, but he needs to rattle off some wins like he did a year ago, I think, to get those odds, kind of back in his favor a little bit. They need to run like they had a year ago, and I think it's a brutal schedule. Obviously, they're capable, but they just got to play clean football more so like they did last week.
Another coach who it seems like they're coaching for their job right now is Hugh Freeze. Georgia comes into Auburn, a night game. in Jordan-Hare. Georgia's a 3.5-point favorite, over-under at 46.5. I don't know what the books know that I don't know. With the line being that close, I figured Georgia would be a 5 to 6 point favorite. I know it's on the road, but I still felt like Georgia would be favored by a little more. Honestly, from what I've seen so far in the offense of Auburn, I expect Georgia to win this game. We've heard Auburn fans, the public has heard Hugh Freeze say that they're going to run the ball more and more the next game, and then they never do. And then they say they're going to run the ball more the next game. They never do. So we heard that Hugh Freeze said he was going to run the ball more against Georgia. We'll see if that comes true. I really find it hard to believe. Number one, because we've yet to see it. But number two, I think Auburn's offense is going to be forced to throw the ball to beat Georgia. And I also think that Auburn's going to be in the position that they have to throw the ball because they're probably going to be down. I think Georgia covers this 3.5. Sad to say, going into the season, I thought this was going to be a jam-up ball game. I hope I'm wrong, but I think Georgia comes in, takes care of business. I think Georgia covers 3.5 with ease.
Really, it's going to be curious to see if anything with the passing game, if Auburn was able to make improvements over the bye week. I agree with your take totally as far as Auburn's going to have to throw the ball to win this game. We know how good Georgia is against the run. They always are. I think you do have to commit to it. Kind of like you saw Alabama, you're not going to make a living doing it, but you have to commit to it enough to where you're not just totally one-dimensional. So be curious to see if Auburn's able to do that and run it well enough to, like I said, make it feel like you're not just putting everything on Jackson Arnold's shoulders. But this is a Georgia team, though, that does not have a high pressure rate, that is not getting to the quarterback at the level that you would expect a Georgia football team to. They do not sack the quarterback very often at all. So I'm really curious to see can Auburn's offensive line kind of keep that the case, keep that what's been happening this year in Georgia, not getting pressure on the quarterback, not getting the quarterback down. Obviously, Jackson Arnold's really mobile, so if Auburn can keep that the case, I think Auburn's got an outside shot to win this game. Get the ball to Cam Coleman somehow, some way. I don't throw it up to him. However you got to do it, Cam Coleman's got to get some touches and make some plays for Auburn to win this game. If it's a 50-50 ball, just throw it up to him. Do not take a bunch of sacks. Give him a chance. Like you said, you would rather see him throw the ball up and give him a chance rather than stand back there for 10 seconds to take a sack. I agree with you. You got to get the ball out of your hands. This isn't a team, like I said, that's going to pressure you at the rate that some other teams do. Or they're not getting home at the rate some other teams do. So if Auburn can get a little semblance of a run game, give themselves a chance to make some plays down the field, I don't think they can do it enough, though, to be honest with you. So I'm with you. I'm going to side with Georgia and take the 3.5. I think it's going to be a pretty close game, though. I don't see Georgia just pulling away with it. I think Auburn's defense has played well enough that's kept them in every game they've been in. I think that can be the case, especially with this Jordan-Hare crowd on Saturday night. I think Auburn's defense can get in, but can Jackson Arnold and this passing game make enough plays be the question. I think they'll make some. Don't know that they'll make enough, so I'll take Georgia. But I think it's going to be a pretty competitive game, though. I really do.
Hope you're right. All right, last SEC game of the weekend. South Carolina's going to LSU. LSU's a 9.5-point favorite. Over-under's 43.5. I like South Carolina to cover the 9.5. I think LSU wins outright, but I think South Carolina covers the 9.5. The most points outside of them playing Southeastern Louisiana, the most points that LSU has scored is 24. Their offense is not just some high old machine that's running it up and down the field. South Carolina, I don't think is going to be able to march up and down the field on this LSU team either, but I think they're going to be able to get theirs. I think they're going to put up points. So I think it's going to be a close game, a 21-14, 20-17, 24-20, something like that. I think it's going to be a closer game. I think LSU wins, but I think South Carolina keeps it close, keeps it within the number. I like South Carolina plus 9.5. I
agree totally. That's probably one of my more favorite picks in the SEC this week. I think I think South Carolina keeps it within the number at LSU. You know, you highlighted it perfectly. Outside of Southeastern Louisiana, LSU scored 19 points on the road and lost to Ole Miss. They scored 20 against Florida at home, 23 against Louisiana Tech, and 17 at Clemson. I don't see them lighting it up. They can't run the football. They haven't been able to so far. They'd have to do a complete 180 on that if they run it in this game. So I think it kind of plays on a lower scoring game. And over the last few years, I know this LSU defense has improved, but what's the main thing that's given LSU trouble? That's a mobile quarterback. And that's exactly what South Carolina has in Lenore Sellers. So, like I said, I think it's on the lower scoring side of things, and I think Lenore Sellers can make some plays to keep them in this. Like I said, I'm not so bold to take South Carolina outright, but I think it's absolutely going to be a dogfight. It's going to be a one-score game. That LSU hasn't pulled away from really anybody. I don't expect that to be the case here, and I think South Carolina, seems to be gaining, a little bit of momentum. I mean, they're coming off a bye week, so which is very helpful. They had a bounce back win against Kentucky, which I know is not a great team, but maybe they can get a little momentum after this bye. So yeah, I'm with you. I think South Carolina covers the 9.5.
Absolutely. All right, I do want to talk about one more thing before we get off of here. Auburn has decided to move their home and home with Baylor next year at Jordan-Hare to Atlanta. It's going to be the Aflac Chick-fil-A kickoff, whichever one it is. They're going to get Auburn is going to get an NIL deal out of this. It's not both Baylor and Auburn. It's Auburn because they're going to be the home team. They're getting a $5 million or up to $5 million NIL. I'm not exactly sure the full amount of money and promises and guarantees that they're going to get. But then they're allotting the same number of tickets for the home base and the same number of tickets for the visiting fans. I think it's horrendous. I hate taking this away. If you wanted to do this in the 2027 and forward seasons, cool. But you're taking away a home and home that fans have been excited about for years. Season ticket holders that have bought these things. College football is best when played on campus. I mean, just in general, I'm not a huge fan of the Chick-fil-A kickoff games. I think, especially opening the football season should be on campus. I loved that some of the playoff games last year were on campus. I think that is awesome. It's better and more fun. Feels the atmosphere even on TV is better than it is in the destination locations as the rest of the playoffs are. I just think, man, taking games away like those type of games away from fans, it really hurts, and I'm not a huge fan of it. It's the way that the game's going, though, it seems, unless something drastic changes. I do want to get your opinions on it, though, as an outsider.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, it's unfortunate. I mean, obviously, everybody understands it from the financial side of things, and, I think, from my understanding, it's events around that game, where there's going to be some NIL opportunities, things like that. When you have playoff games and these neutral site games, you have events surrounding those days leading up to the game, and so yeah, it's unfortunate for the fans. That's the big thing, and taking away a game from campus. But like I said, that's unfortunately it's the era we're in now, where decisions are going to be financially driven, but specifically NIL driven as well. Because I mean, it's you're trying to raise as many funds as you can to build your roster, and so congratulations, Cam Coleman. You'll probably get a pretty nice little bit chunk of that $5 for next year.
That's going to allow Auburn to keep Cam Coleman. I think that fans will be less upset about it if Auburn competes for a championship. If they're taking games away and your team's getting this money, but they're not competing for a championship, I think that's when when fans become frustrated and it's a harder pill to swallow. If your team's out there consistently competing for championships, it's a little easier to take in. But when you're giving up a home game to go get money to get players, and then the players come in and you still can't do anything and it's still mediocre, I think that's where the unsettlement, the unrest comes in from the fans.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like I said, it's unfortunate that that's going away from campus, but I mean, I do think people understand, like, hey, that's part of the business now. You have to do things, but like I said, it is unfortunate because the fans are the ones that kind of suffer the consequences. Like if you want to go to that game now, you got to go up to Atlanta to do it. And I guess for some fans, if you're not close to Auburn, it may be closer to go over there. So just like I said, just kind of part of the landscape now. I mean, it's good that players are getting a piece of the pie now. It's great, but it's just unfortunate when decisions are made that are 100% financially driven and don't really have the fans and the fan experience at the top of their mind. But like I said, everybody gets why it is that way and why that decision was made. And like I said, I'm like you. The more that we can have on campus, certainly the better for fans and for college football. I really just want to appreciate everyone for tuning in. Just be sure to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We really appreciate that. Shorts are doing really well. We're posting a lot of those, kind of have some shorter form content for people to see, whether it be specific recaps or talks about specific players or previews for the following week. So TikTok channel's doing great as well. You can follow us over there. Same thing on Twitter at Saturdays_SEC. Just really appreciate everyone for tuning in. It's hard to believe we're already going into week 7, but we got another unbelievable slate this week and really curious to see how it unfolds.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for tuning in.